our introduction. We should start start with one of us and just like our introduction to video games, right? Because they were new.
Yeah. We were like the first generation to really have them, if you think about it. Was there anything before Pong? Because I had Pong.
Oh, I had some Western something when I was a little kid. It had like a gun,
Uh-huh.
and I think it had a paddle.
Yeah, it looked like the 80s cell phones.
Yeah.
And then there was the thing with where the dot would go across the screen and you had to shoot it.
But it had a Western name to it. And it was like a console. I think it was one of the first consoles. But this must have been like 76.
Yeah, something around there. That's about right. Yeah, I literally probably had every system there was, barring, well, I mean, one iteration of each system. You know, I didn't have an Atari 5200, but I had an Atari 2600. I had a Commodore 64. I had, Nintendo ColecoVision. Do you remember that with that crazy?
Yeah, that was the first system that I had that was all mine to myself, that I did not have to share with anyone. It was not the family, whatever.
Wasn't that like an Intellivision clone? ColecoVision?
Sort of. It had that weird paddle. So it had the paddle with the numbers on it, and it had a joystick that you kind of did like that.
Oh, okay.
It was like long. It had a long, yeah. Man, and just the evolution of the joysticks and stuff. And,
yeah.
In television with that circular pad thing, with those overlays that you put in that always go bad.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. And if you didn't have them, you couldn't play the game.
Right. Or you better have a pretty good memory.
Before we had the video games at home, I was born in 71. And I remember as a kid, there was this Chinese restaurant that had a Pong video game, like all the way in the back of the restaurant. We'd go into this restaurant just to play the Pong. You go all the way to the back and play Pong back there. We did that. And I was lucky enough as a kid, my sister got a job at Chuck E. Cheese. And this was like in the early 80s when the video games were all out. And I remember I would go there so often. Me and my brother, we mapped out the entire Chuck E. Cheese, like all the video games around the entire layout of the place. And we had them all labeled. We knew which one was which. And we'd go there with like a plan of what we were going to do and which games we'd hit first and so on and so forth. And at home, we had like a lot of the video game console. I mean, not all of them. We didn't have. I know I played Pitfall. I liked River Raid was one of my favorites.
River Raid.
I don't know what system if that was on. So I get them mixed up because a lot of the games were on multiple systems. So it was probably Atari or ColecoVision. And there was this one game called Mountain King. We used to play that like all the time. And with like games like Pac-Man, we'd like play those games so much. We would map those out. We'd get like the hint book on Pac-Man. I don't know if you guys did that, where it like tells you how to map out what route to go on every level to beat it without running into. And if you followed the level exactly, like the route, then you wouldn't hit the ghost. So we were like doing stuff like that and just playing like over and over. A lot of hours wasted on the video games.
Did you guys see that, what I just put up, or no?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that controller to?
That was the ColecoVision controller.
Oh,
No,
wow.
that
No, I'm not
wasn't-
familiar with
wasn't
that
the one I
controller.
had.
Yeah, that was one of the special ones.
I think that the Atari was similar. It was just the joystick with the one red button,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, God, and what other combat was probably my first gaming system that it was like bought for me was the Atari 2600 with like combat and
Which was like planes and tanks.
Yeah.
And what was the third? There was a third thing.
I think it was a helicopter, and you had
Okay.
I
It's like
think,
Defender
White buildings
or-
or something. Defender, I remember that. Was that
Oh
on?
man,
Bug?
Defender was awesome, man.
Yeah, I love the sound, just the sound on like Stargate and Defender. Those two had like some of the best sounds.
Stargate.
Remember Star? It was
Stargate
kind
was
of
like it's very similar to Defender.
Is that the one where you kind of went around a circle?
no, that was
All I
Temple.
remember is Stargate had these rectangles that you would go into and they like transport you or something like that. That's what I recall.
And what was the net? God, then I had in the television B-17 bomber or B-52 bomber. Do you remember that one?
B-17.
B-17 bomber?
Yeah.
B-52
bomber.
bomber.
B-52 bomber would be over very quickly because that was nuclear. So,
Oh,
Remember,
it-
what was the one game? There was a video game. Remember the games that had like the trackball? And
yeah,
there was
like
a
Missile Command.
Missile Command. Yeah, that's
Oh,
what I was trying to think of.
yeah.
And
I
it
love
sucked
that.
with it, and it sucked on the Atari because the
You didn't have the
joystick
trackball.
wasn't. Yeah, you had paddles for like I think like a Pong type game. I remember that.
I remember the console games being like second fiddle to the arcade games. Like the arcade games kind of ruled, and then the home games were sort of like cool, but the arcade games were still kind of the where
it was
it was
nowhere
at.
near.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Galaga. Remember, I just remember
Oh, Galaga. Yep.
always.
Oh man, I
wanting that
remember
to
when I
be-
learned how to get captured and then get my guy back, and then you have the two.
Yeah.
that game.
At the
I would,
same time.
if I saw a Galaga machine somewhere, I would probably stop and play it once.
Well, this was like years ago, maybe like 15 years ago or something. I saw on eBay they had like an Atari 2600, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to totally get this.
Mhm.
And my friend, good friend at the time, business partner, he was like, dude, you're gonna get it. You're gonna play each game for like 5 minutes.
And you're gonna be like,
this sucks. And I'm like, man, you're totally like spoiling it. So anyway, so I got it, and I got like 8 games with it, and he was totally right. Like after like 5 minutes, I was like, this totally sucks. I mean, and these were games I used to play for hours when I was a kid.
God.
So everything is relative, to a degree. The first time I saw a video game was like 77 probably. My dad's oldest brother, he was an engineer with Philadelphia Electric, and he was always the dude that was like traveling around the world, and he was a single guy. My aunt had died years before, and we would go to his house, and he would like show slideshows of like his trips to like Antarctica and Asia, and I mean he was so exotic to me. It was like, anyway, so he had a TRS 80 or something with like the tape deck that would like load the games from the cassette deck, and he had this game called Pillbox where you had to like put in the vector and then like the velocity, and then you would shoot this little cursor over and like try to hit someone else's like target, and then they would like try to shoot you. And he was always like on the cutting edge of everything. He was the first person I knew that had a microwave. But anyway, that was like my first introduction to it. And then we got a VIC 20, and then we got an Odyssey 2, which was like Magnavox's game system. And
I remember that, yeah.
they had like everything was a ripoff of Atari. So like instead of Pac-Man, they had like KC Munchkin, and instead of Pitfall, they had like Pickaxe Pete. Like everything was like
the McDonald's. It's McDonald's.
It was like the lower version of it, But yeah, man. I mean, anytime. I mean, when I was a kid, if there was a nice day, we were always outside. So my experience with video games was, it was like because it was raining or it was too cold. Like it was always like the second thing. Like the first thing was like we're outside exploring, BMX biking, jumping ramps, playing in the mud. Video games were always like the hang back thing,
Now
I just didn't care. We played them like freaking all. There was no like, oh man, you're playing that too much. None of that. We played them. We would play them for hours, all night, through the night. to the morning.
Oh yeah. I was thinking about those times, and it was funny because along podcast in mine, me and this buddy that lived across the circle from us, because we lived like in a court, it was Hayloft Court in Sterling, and we would record bits on a tape recorder, like little comedy bits. And it's just funny that this is what it's evolved to in my mind. But
Yeah,
not,
man.
but I didn't mean to digress from it, but it was just
No, that's cool.
but yeah, no, and then at some point along the line, everybody was making systems. I want to say it really didn't. I think there was like a lull maybe in the 80s. Like it might have even been close to dying off.
Yeah, because the games were crap. They were just putting out a bunch of crap. You could
Yeah.
buy like, 10 games for, $15 or something. I mean, it got really bad.
Yeah. And then the 90s hit, and we had like our Nintendo 64. I think I had the original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and a Nintendo 64. I had all of them. But I remember one of the first games that just blew my mind was probably GoldenEye.
It's so well regarded.
Oh yeah, I think it's probably considered one of the best video games ever made.
I think the best
played
video
it.
game ever made is Mario Karts. I'm sorry. Nothing beats that. And that was the game that I just totally crapped all over when Allison got that for me for my birthday. I was just like, what is your problem? Why would you get it? And then when I brought it over to a friend of mine's house, Darnell.
Yeah, yeah.
I brought it over to his
Met him once
house.
or twice.
Cousin was there, and I had 4 controllers, and we used 3 of them, hooked it up to the TV and everything. And man, we played that game for like 5 hours. It was ridiculous, and we're all laughing. I mean, laughing to the point where the muscles in your head hurt and everything. I mean, it was ridiculous. I just never had so much fun. Yeah, and it was unexpected. That's the cool thing. It was unexpected because I hated that game. I hated that.
But you love playing it.
Wasn't the paradigm shift with Super Mario Brothers when that came out? That game was like, it wasn't just like an arcade game that they tried to put on the home console. It was like a completely new concept, really, and it just like it was amazing to play that game.
Well, the scrolling and everything. It was. I mean, you're in and out, sideways. I mean, it was all sorts of things. That was
yeah. They that whole going in and out thing they did by accident. Like going behind things, it was accidental.
I mean, all the hidden stuff. I mean, it was so intriguing because they had like hidden stuff like all over the place. That really made it, for a kid, because you could just play it like over and over, keep looking for in different spots and trying to find hidden areas that you didn't see the first time through.
Like Easter eggs, I guess they call them Easter eggs now, but like I remember in like in the Odyssey 2, like trying to find glitches or whatever, like we thought it was more sophisticated than it was, but like I remember in television, in auto racing, there were certain tracks where you could like set your car up to go in a certain direction, and you could just like let go of the controller and it would just continue. Like it would have a clear cut and it would just go. It was like, someone programmed it in there where your car could just go forever. Like it never hit anything. And like finding that stuff was so cool. And like in Adventure, finding like the little Easter, that was actually the first Easter egg. Like the guy that programmed it put a little Easter egg in there. But arcade, I think the thing that I mean, not to be all like grumpy old man, but that a lot of kids miss now is the social. I mean, I know the social aspect now, which I'm not into, is like playing online with the headsets, and that's cool. Like I'm just I don't know anything about that. I mean, that's great. Where people are like play online together.
Honestly, though, not to interrupt.
Yeah,
but mostly it's just a bunch of kids cussing and saying racial shit. It's really awful.
Yeah, but still, I mean, there is a social. You're not just by yourself. Like you're playing with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But for for me, or for me, what I remember is the whole arcade experience, and being like a 9-year-old and going into arcade and like putting your quarter down and having like a 13-year-old like pick your quarter up and give it back to you and be like, F you, dude, like I'm next, and like put his quarter down or whatever. And like the machines would have like the burn marks from like cigarettes. Later in the night, like they still allowed smoking in the mall. And like people like put their cigarette down while they're playing, and or like the machine was like in a bar 3 weeks ago and like had cigarette marks on it. Anyway, I mean, you would like get your score on there, and then on like a Friday, and like the next Friday it would be gone, and like you had no idea that they were like unplugging the machines at night. It would just erase everything. You're like, man, I had the high score on here, like what's going on? But like
Sure
that
you
whole
did.
social that whole social aspect of the arcade, is kind of gone. Like like being excited when someone was doing something cool, and like people would like gather around and things like that. I just that whole aspect of it's kind of gone now.
Well, I mean, are there really even any arcades? I haven't seen one.
I don't think so.
I think the death of the arcade was when Super Mario came home.
Yeah.
When one of the most popular games ever, like game changer, no pun intended, in the gaming industry, when you could play that at home and it was the exact same thing as one in the arcade.
And I think like what Tom brought up on a previous episode with the malls, right? I mean, when the malls started dying, the arcades kind of went away with that.
Well, I think the games surpassed the arcade.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean I don't have to stand up?
Yeah. My go-to game in the arcade, I love Battlezone. Like the Atari tank game, everything was like lines.
Oh yeah. That's vector graphics.
Vector graphics. That was like so awesome. And people would like.
Oh, remember they even had the ones where
you put your face
like you
up,
were looking in the
and it's funny because I remember as a kid, and this is something that came out later, like when Last Starfighter came out, which is like one of the best 80s movies ever. But I remember, like, if you're like 10 years old, people are like, oh, like the US Army is totally in on this game with Atari. And if you're good at Battlezone, they'll call you and like ask you to be a tank commander. Like, absolutely, like, I mean, that was, anyway, like, who knows? I mean, but you hear these stories now where they're like, yeah, man, they put these video games out, and, drones flying, flying by dudes that are like Nebraska.
Yeah,
it is a video game. I don't know. It was like 20 years ahead of its time. I don't know.
Yeah. I did.
Don't they use Flight Simulator for?
I think so.
Yeah.
It is actually a pretty good simulator.
Have you ever done one of the ones?
It's more than pretty good, man. It's near perfect.
Well, I keep crashing every time I play. So.
Hey, well, that's a sign that don't get behind a wheel.
I shouldn't be a pilot.
Yeah, don't be a pilot. Wait, let me write note to self.
Not fly.
Can anybody fly this plane?
I played flight.
Don't raise your hand.
What score did you
Hey,
get?
I'm good. Hey, you're like a terrorist. You're gonna take it off.
Where's the Alt button and the Escape button? I can't fly this without a space bar. That's pretty funny.
There's a documentary on, I think it's Netflix, called High Score. It's like a series, like, I don't know, maybe like 6 episodes or something, where they talk about the evolution of video games, arcade games, and things like that. It's pretty fascinating. If you guys have a chance to see it.
Didn't they have one not too long ago about Donkey Kong?
Yeah.
I love that.
King of Kong. King of Kong,
that's it. For some reason.
Billy Murphy.
Yeah. Didn't he die?
I don't think so.
No.
Who?
Billy Murphy.
One of them, I think one of them died. But it was all about
the Twin Galaxies guy died, I think. The guy that was keeping track of all the high scores.
Oh.
That's so
Gotcha. Like the keeper of the scores.
Yeah. He's dead.
Yeah, that was a weird group of people too.
Yeah, there was the Donkey Kong guy. I forget they had like one guy that was like an expert at each like video game.
hmm And then, talking about the game behind Mike, that was probably one of my favorite games on Atari. That was Atari, right?
Mhm. Well, they had it on different formats, but to me, I was always an Activision guy, man. Like if Activision put something down, because those guys, I don't know enough about this, but I don't know if Atari was like the equivalent of like open source, but Activision was its own company of like ex Atari programmers that did their own game development and released them on, Atari's system. But
Right.
they weren't owned by Atari. Activision always had like it was like the aluminum foil surface with like the rainbow banner on it,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and they were like the best games. I mean, Pitfall was Activision.
I
I don't know
know.
what the story of that is, but
I want to say I heard on some podcast that Activision was like one of the worst places on the planet to work for. They
their
would just
games were great.
yeah, they were just grueling schedules, and they were horrible to their employees, and the employees
I
got no cut.
That sounds like all programming houses. That's why I decided not to become a programmer. Because let's see, a bunch of guys that I was in with during the whole AOL era, those guys were writing code for different little, I guess you call them apps now, that worked in AOL. And the way it usually started is you'd start off as like kind of like a sysop. I forget the name that they called it on AOL, and they would teach you how to code. And as you got better, you'd actually get a job. They'd hire you to maintain software and stuff or certain modules or whatever.
Right.
And a few of those guys, they're worth millions, because they got in with the options and all that stuff.
Yeah,
And some
apparently
of them,
they were really good to their employees.
and some of them got burnt out, and or like the way I thought that I might be. So
Yeah, when I worked for Icon Office Solutions, this is like 20 years ago. AOL was still around, and they were out in Reston, remember?
yeah.
They're still
Oh,
around.
they were in Tyson's Corner.
And they
They were
were
in
in
Tyson's.
Reston as well.
They're still in business.
What's
Yeah.
that? Are they?
AOL is still in business.
Where they're not in Reston anymore, are they?
I don't know where they are, but they're
Because
still they still
where they
have
used
customers.
where they used to be was where the I think now it's a Walmart in
Huh.
at Tyson's Corner.
Yeah, I wonder what the death of them was. Amazon? Nah.
I mean, people still have AOL email accounts.
Jack has an
It
AOL.
took forever to get rid of all those CDs, man. It was like every other week.
7,000 free minutes.
I started using them as a coaster. I was doing all sorts of things with those things.
Those
man.
in the CompuServe CDs, same thing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know what's
now-
interesting with arcade games, and I don't know, and I don't know because I don't have kids that are like teenagers or whatever. But when we were growing up, arcade or video games were quote unquote arcade games, right? Like Pitfall, where you would start a certain thing, it was like, and then it would end, and you start at the beginning and keep going. Whereas now things are sort of like campaign videos or first person shooters. I mean, Doom kind of changed everything, which
Yeah.
I think Doom was like a PC game originally. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it was a PC before it ever got onto a console.
But having like
And
that
Duke
first person
Nukem?
shooter, or like, I'm just saying, video games now, do they still make quote unquote arcade video games, or is that like ancient history right now, where you have a character that's going through a maze, or like, in other words, like Donkey Kong, you could master Donkey Kong because it was the same play, like level 163
Right.
was the same every time you played it. Like, do they still make games like that? I mean, I think they're more
so.
sophisticated now.
Maybe on some.
No, I think
just on an
there
app.
are lots of side scroller type games, 2D games. There's still a bunch of them,
Yeah,
and there are
okay.
new ones that come out all the time. Like I think there's one, I want to say it was called Ink or something like that, or Shadow.
Oh, yeah.
And there are a few that are on the Apple, what is
TV.
that, Arcade, Apple Arcade. There's some side-scrolling type games.
Yeah, and every
But
once
those
in a
are,
while you'll
I
get
think those
like
are, certain people, a certain type of person loves those games,
yeah,
and
nostalgia.
that's the only thing that they play,
Like the arcade type, like the
like
yeah.
me, as soon as what was that what was the first game that I could think of? Well, I guess, Leisure Suit Larry really wasn't, you kind of
Police
moved along a
Squad,
little.
the
Huh?
the Sierra games like Police
Yeah.
Squad,
Yeah,
King's
yeah.
Quest.
King's
I
Quest.
like those
That was an
games. Like
RPG.
it's a role-playing game. I like
Yeah.
those, And
How
then
about
once they had the role-playing games where it was open world, I was like, this is like a dream come true, A GTA, I mean,
I've
that's
never
like
played that, and yet
everything.
it seems so cool. It's like a whole universe
Yeah.
unto itself.
they call it Sandlot or something like that?
Sandbox.
Yeah, sandbox games. Yeah, do you remember? I don't know if you guys remember, but GTA started out as a game where you were over the head of the guy stealing
Yeah,
cars.
yeah. It was a 2D.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It was
it
a
was like
2D. I used to play. I
yeah,
used to play it.
yeah. It was fun. It was actually fun. I see where they went with that. Yeah, GTA, man, that was a weird one because if you'd play that for like days with people, and then it always came down to like you try and get 5 stars so you could see how long you could survive running from the cops, and you could do horrible things like run over people. But it got to a point. I don't know if anybody else had this weird thing where you were driving and you for a second you were just thinking GTA. like you were in the car in the game. Like, what if I did that?
Probably wouldn't be good.
No, it wouldn't be good at all.
What
Put on
I,
your list. Do not let Zeus drive.
yeah, do not let Zeus.
After playing Grand Theft Auto.
Note to self.
The one I'm playing lately is Call of Duty. What is it? Cold War, and it's all 1980s, so it's like Reagan on the screen, and he's in the game like directing these covert ops. It's so addictive.
Do we think that Reagan was directing covert ops?
I think
No.
maybe
Maybe not. I don't know.
he was ordering them at bare minimum.
That was Ollie
Um,
North, right?
You know, it was another good one. Do you guys remember Final Fantasy VII?
Yeah.
I didn't play it, but I remember it being a thing.
It was huge.
Is that the one with the Meister?
No, it was the one with Cloud.
Oh.
It was yeah, it was on the Sony PlayStation. It came out around, I want to say 92, 94, somewhere around there.
Mhm.
And
that early?
yeah, and it sold like 1 million copies in like a week. It was like the biggest selling game ever at the time. Now it's probably like Grand Theft Auto or something like that. But yeah, it was. Do you remember this with the PlayStation where some games would require 2 discs? Like you had to pop it open and put in the other disc. Do you
Or
remember?
the double-sided disc?
Yeah, yeah. But that one took like 4 discs. But the thing that sucks is if you lose one of the discs, the
You're
game
screwed.
was so funny. But yeah,
I always appreciated the games that weren't like, I used to call them like shoot 'em ups, like before the first person shooter, like for in television, like a game like Bomb Squad, where you had to like defuse. It was one of the talking games, like Space Spartans or B-17 Bomber, and it would present you with like this bomb, and you had to disarm it, and you would have like wire clippers and a soldering iron, and like it was so weird. I was like, this is such a cool game, like because everything else was like shooting people or doing something like that. And then they had the one where you had to like operate on somebody, which was like very strange, like you were like a surgeon. But now everything just seems to be like a shooting game.
no, there's other stuff. There's one I play on my iPad religiously called Hearthstone. It's kind of a card-based game like Magic. Have you ever heard of it?
Okay.
And I play it daily, at least one game a day, probably. But do you guys remember Dragon's Lair?
Oh yeah.
That was
man,
another. That was a
the
game
disc
changer
game.
too.
That was
It
the
was a
laser
game
disc
where
game.
everybody would gather around, like Mike was saying. When that game came out and somebody was playing Dragon's Lair, there'd be like a crowd of people around watching that. Because
I
they used to have
remember
like a TV, they had a monitor up high
above it.
so
Yeah.
that people could watch. Yeah.
I remember that at the beach, man. Like at the boardwalk, people would be playing that game. And it was like a cartoon, right?
Yeah.
It would have like you do something, it'd be like a pause, and then like the dragon
Yeah.
would be like, ah, and like shoot fire at you.
Yeah, that was a huge one. And then Space Ace was after that. And there were a few others like that. But that one, man, I remember that when I lived in Sugarland Run in Sterling. That was at the 7-Eleven. Remember when video games were in the convenience
Yeah.
stores?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, you know what's a system I never had? There is a system I never had. Do you guys remember one called Neo Geo?
Neo
No.
Geo, yeah.
Yeah.
That was that had the little they were like little rectangular shapes that you pushed in. It was like a skinny cartridge.
I remember that it had a big control, like it had all 6 buttons, so you could do all kinds of different stuff with it and program the buttons. That one I never had, and I always wanted that one. And then
Yeah, see, I got the Neo Geo when I was working at no, I'm thinking of the TurboGrafx 16. I'm thinking of the TurboGrafx 16.
So what was your favorite, and I'll start. What was your favorite like arcade game in the arcade? For me, it was Tron, like the stand-up Tron with like the spiders and the bikes and the tanks and the MCP cone.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. For me, it was Street Fighter 2.
Oh,
Street Fighter 2 was like to movies, it was like Terminator 2. You know,
it was
Street Fighter 2 was the best video game. I mean, like
it was fantastic.
and just being able to take on your friends, people that you didn't know, whatever, you know, and just hoo-yaka.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid one. What about you, Tom?
That's a tough question. Probably, I mean, I'm sure it changed as time went on. I remember Asteroids when early on, that was the go-to game. Joust was a game I always gravitated to.
Oh yeah,
Played that. I loved it. Yeah, I always played that one. Pac-Man it's classic, but it was a good go-to game. I don't know.
Tempest was a good one.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Galaga was probably
Man.
my go-to for years. Love Galaga.
Yeah, I used to be able to go to the what is it? It was called some bakery at Lake Ann in Reston. There's this area called Lake Ann.
Yeah.
And there was a bakery there, and I was friends with the kid. His dad owned the bakery, and they had an arcade in the back of it, right? And on Sunday mornings, after I finished my paper route, I'd go down there and he would flick the machine for me in the back, so I could, like, all the games I could play for free.
Nice.
About 2 or 3 hours early in the morning.
But
That
I
was
mean,
cool.
like if you went to like a like I remember going to my cousin's place up in Jersey, and we would go to get the pizza place to pick up pizza, you know, because we get pizza for lunch. And like pizza places had like 1 or 2 video games in them, like Donkey Kong or something, you know, that you could play like while you're waiting. Yeah, I don't know if they, you know, I don't know if you really see that anymore. But that, I mean, there was a lot of video games that weren't in arcades. They were, you know, kind of one-offs, like pinball.
Yeah, you
Pinball's
don't
pretty awesome.
see pinball anywhere anymore.
There's actually, so if you see like King of Kong, that movie we were talking about, there's that place up in wherever, I don't know, that has all the old video games. And I know you guys are all over the place, but there is a place called Crabtown, USA, that is off exit 15 on 97 in Maryland, near Quarterfield Road, which is kind of a funny name, near BWI Airport. and it's a place where you can buy crabs, but they have an arcade with like 100 games, and they are all the games we're talking about, and they're all quarter, and you can go in there and play, and they have every game that we've already talked about in an arcade that they have them there, and it's like this little crab shack.
There's a place in Bethesda that I don't know if they just opened up like 5 years ago. I don't know if they survived, but they had like all pinball machines. It was pizza and pinball. I don't remember the name. But it was in downtown Bethesda.
But there's some of these places still around, you
Yeah.
know.
Well,
When I went out to visit Rebecca, there was a place out there, and it was an area called Schaumburg. It's a suburb of Chicago, and they had a vintage video game place. So it looked like, well, it just looked like a normal arcade, but it was all these, these stand-up arcades. They were arcade games. They were all 30 years old. But it was cool. It's very cool. You pay $15 and you can play like all day.
I do take it back. There's a huge place, and I'm surprised none of us thought about it. But Dave and Buster's still still in existence.
Do they do the older games?
I can't say that I saw any older games, but the games are, like I said, I have stuff that's more fun that I would play at home, and I've got beer.
The games nowadays, they're like more like attractions when you're in like a Great Wolf Lodge and they have like the arcades and those sorts of resorts. You'll have like the giant sized Connect 4.
Yeah.
Things like that.
The
or
game
the giant sized Pac-Man.
Or the big claw game.
Yeah. I mean, they're just attractions now.
I really think, and again, and Zeus knows it. I'm a theater guy, so I'm like old theaters and stuff. But I'd really draw a parallel between like older theaters and arcades, and there's a difference, And I have a friend; he's got some like old arcade games in his basement. A couple of them. It's fun to play. But there's something about going to see a movie that's really awesome in a theater with 1,000 people, or going to play an arcade game in an arcade that has like 100 games and everything's rocking and the music's playing, versus watching a movie, on your phone or at home, or playing a video game at home alone. There's just like a different energy to it. And it's like, I think if people never experience that, like they don't know what they're missing. And I know I sound like an old fogey with that, but there's definitely a parallel. The social aspect of going to see a movie in a theater and playing an arcade game in an arcade is totally different than doing it at home by yourself.
It's like drinking at home or going to a bar. It's shared experience.
Yeah.
Concerts, football games.
Yes.
It's like an aura of everybody around you is there for the same thing.
And I'm not saying
when we finally brought our video games home, we didn't know we were already preparing for a pandemic.
Right.
We had foresight.
Yeah.
There is something about that. Like one of my favorite stories about going to the movies. I don't know. Did I ever tell you guys my experience with Django? When I saw it,
I remember.
So has everybody seen Django Unchained? Yeah. Okay. So this is one of the funniest things ever that's happened. So you know how they use the N-word like 5,000 times in the movie, right? But at some point in the movie, I think everybody, white people, is kind of uncomfortable, right? Because you're like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have paid to see this. And they're doing funny things that lead up to it. But there's some point in the movie where everybody just starts laughing. And it's just like, because he did it to a point where it became ridiculous. You know what I mean? And I think that was his intent. But my story is they do something funny, and there's these two black guys like 3 or 4 seats down from me, and they're laughing when he says and I'm like, I'm not doing it. Right? And then about 10 more minutes in the movie, I look down over, and then one guy looks at me and goes, "It's okay to laugh," and then the floodgates open. But it was just hilarious. I was like looking for permission to laugh at the bad word that was being used in the movie.
There's definitely movies that play better with a crowd than without. There was I mean, it was kind of an art house film, but The Artist came out in like 2012.
Is that the James Franco one?
No, that's Disaster Artist.
Oh, okay.
This was maybe 2011. It was black and white. It was a foreign film. It was silent, and it was made in the style of like a 1920s movie. And I went to see it 3 times in like 3 weeks. And the first time I went to see it was with a full crowd in a movie theater, and everyone was reacting. Whoa, now I'm out of focus. Everyone was reacting to the punchlines, and it was like it brought a whole other element to the film. And then the next time I saw it, it was like me and like 7 other people, and there was no like people. There weren't people reacting to it, and it wasn't as good. You know what I mean? Like it just wasn't as good. And there's a lot of movies that are like that just play better with a crowd.
Yeah, like so I went to see, remember Independence Day?
Oh my God, I love that movie. When it came out.
Remember so in the DC area, I would assume they did this at places where they had big movie houses, but at the Uptown Theater, they played it 24/7 for like
again and
4 days or 5 days, something like that. And I went, I think it was like on January, I'm sorry, July 3rd or something like that. And I went to see it at like, it was like 2:00 in the morning, something ridiculous. And it was the most amazing movie. And I was like, wow, yeah. You know, it was like, what is he punches him through the helmet? And he's like, welcome to America or Earth or something like that or whatever. And everyone's like, yeah, you know, the whole.
How about
have you guys been to
the
that
speech at the end of the movie?
Yeah, man, and you don't get that when you're sitting in your basement looking at it on the best screen you can possibly see it on. It's just not the same.
You know, there's another movie like that was Armageddon. Another movie I loved when it came out.
Popcorn movie, yeah.
There was a series of movies that were like that. What was the Nick Nolte and Sean Connery, The Rock was like.
Oh yeah, man. No, Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery, and that was a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah,
as well, which was totally absurd.
Con Air. Steve Buscemi is rolled onto the plane. He's like the most dangerous guy out of everybody there.
Right.
I love Buscemi.
There's a great video online of the reaction. Have you ever seen the reaction video of I think it was Avengers Endgame, and the people are in the theater are just like
when Cap catches the hammer.
Yeah,
God, I love that scene.
Nuts. I mean, I love I wasn't in the theater, but I love the video. So
yeah, I saw it in the theater. That was probably like the last movie that I saw before the pandemic, because I don't get to see movies much anyway. So that was who was choked up at the end.
Oh,
I was choked up. Like I was like, this is stupid. This is not even real. And I'm all.
And
the scene where
the
scene where Peter Parker is gonna get dusted. That one was pretty. That was some pretty good acting. I was like, they can't kill Spider-Man, you know. I love that. Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies to date. Endgame was such a good movie. So is Infinity War.
Like Independence Day, some of these movies, if they come along at just the right time, because I don't know if that movie would work like 10 years before or 10 years after, but it just hit a nerve like right then and there. Yeah. It was like the perfect movie at the perfect time.
Well, I know it sucked watching it on HBO because I didn't feel anywhere near, because I was like all excited to watch it again. And I was like, this movie's terrible.
Was awful as well.
Well, like I'll always go back to that speech at the end with Bill Pullman. Yeah. Where he's like, and no, we're not just Americans or Japanese. we're people of Earth, and like this is Independence Day for everybody. It was so cheesy, and of course he was a pilot,
Right.
a really good pilot, because we've had so many pilots that are presidents.
Other presidents. Happens all the time.
And Randy Quaid flying up into the ship.
Yeah.
That movie, it had an inspirational vibe to it at the time. Didn't they make a sequel to that?
Yeah, it was terrible.
Resurgence or something.
Yeah, that was not necessary. Some movies some of them you just let them die and stay there. That's when I didn't need to see them do. Armageddon, I think they could do Armageddon again these days. That movie was packed with everybody. Steve Buscemi again. Everything with Steve Buscemi is good.
Yeah, that was another Michael Bay, man. He popcorn movie, summer blockbuster, Leaving on a Jet Plane.
You know, it was a good one.
Liv Tyler was in.
Oh God, I love her. Ben Affleck. But what was it? My sister worked on Bumblebee. If you guys haven't seen that, that's Michael Bay one. Also, it's actually really good for once. I
haven't seen it.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Oh, the Transformers.
It's all just Bumblebee. They show some of the other Transformers towards the end, but 99% of the movie it's all Bumblebee, and it's the time in between when the planet blew up. He got to Earth like 10 years before the rest of the Transformers. It was like a prequel.
Is he a Volkswagen or a Camaro?
He's the Volkswagen, but then he gets to become a Camaro later on.
Oh.
But yeah, no, it's a really good movie.
It's quite an upgrade.
Yeah, it's solid. Good acting, everything. But yeah, so back to video games. Let's we said what our favorites were. What is the worst game you've ever bought? Like the biggest disappointment?
I mean, it's not one game, but when I bought the 2600 like a few years ago and went to play it, and it was very sad. It was very sad. Like, within 20 minutes, I was done with my $60 eBay purchase.
I would say for me, it was remember the first Game Boy system where it was like that brick, that gray brick.
That was awesome.
Game Boy, yeah.
I played Tetris all the time.
That's all I ever.
Boom, 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 boom.
It was like,
is there a better game than Tetris? Really? I mean, that game.
It was
everyone loves Tetris.
Made for Tetris and nothing else, because every other game on it sucked.
Yeah, there's certain games like Tetris, like when you play it too much, and you start seeing like bricks.
Yeah.
Everywhere you walk around the house, there's like bricks falling. There's a couple of games like that, but Tetris is notorious.
And they keep reinventing it, and it's still just Tetris. There's not like a whole lot you can do to change it. You know?
Yeah. Oh no, I know what the worst game was. It was the last Command and Conquer game.
Red
EA, EA had purchased Westwood, and
Red Alert.
No, Red Alert was still when while they were good.
I want to say it was Generals.
This was after Generals 2. They had totally changed the format so that they limited the amount of whatever you could build. So you had this like pod that you would move around. You can make it mobile, and then you could sit it, and you could make some men or whatever. But you had a limit of like, I don't know, 5 men or 8 men or whatever. But it sucked. It was terrible. I spent like $70, and it was so bad that I went out and I warned all my friends. I was like, "Don't waste your money." It was almost like taking it, jumping on a grenade. That's how I felt.
Taking one for the team. Yeah,
that's hilarious. It's another good one that I failed to mention is several iterations of it, but Civ 6, I think is what
Oh
they're
yeah,
on now.
man.
That game
Oh,
is
I love
so
it.
cool.
I've got it on my
Civilization.
iPad. I've got it
Yeah.
on my Macs. I've got it on on my
I've got it on.
Windows. Yeah, I
Yeah,
paid for it multiple times. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
What's it
it's
love it.
called?
really Civilization.
Civilization.
Civ 6.
Now they're on the 6th version, but it's like a
It's a
world builder.
turn-based game. It's a turn-based strategy.
Yeah, you build like you start in prehistoric times and you gather wood and other resources and you advance, and like there's several different ways to win. One is like conquering the world. Think of like Risk on
Yeah.
steroids. So you gather resources and then you'll build a city, and once you reach a certain point, you get to another era like the Bronze Era, and you can focus on, say, currency or a certain type of government, maybe a theocracy or a monarchy.
Hmm.
So the ways you win are like world domination or first person into space
Ah,
or what were some of the other ones? Do you know, Darcy?
I can't remember.
Yeah, but there's like several different ways to win getting all the world's 8 wonders.
was
It Go
was
ahead.
the first game like that? Like Sim City? Was that like the first game that was like that, or was there ones like that before Sim City?
I'd say SimCity's the first one I
That,
recall. Maybe
yeah.
Oregon Trail. Remember
Oh
that?
yeah, I remember that one.
And do the world building sort of stuff.
SimCity was good, and then The Sims came out, and that was a blockbuster.
Remember? No, the I think the first. Well, but it's sort of a mix, I guess. But you remember the first God game where it was called Populous. You remember that?
I
Oh,
You
remember
had
the
these
name.
people, that you're like responsible for, and they do whatever they want to do, but you kind of influence what they do.
Right.
So you have to make the land a certain way and make the water a certain way, and you make it rain, in certain areas, and then if you do good enough, they worship you, and you get mana from it, so then you can do more. And I mean,
There's a
that was a
game.
cool game.
There's a game called Black and White that was a lot like that.
Yeah.
Populous.
What was the game? There was a war game. It was called like Lords of something. God, that was such a good game. You'd control like the little armies. They said, "Yes, my lord." And they'd go like over to that area. "Yes, my lord." They'd go. They'd just go wherever.
What about Blizzard, man? Blizzard makes nothing but hits. Remember Warcraft, the original Warcraft?
I never got into that, but everyone I did know
Yeah,
that did
to
like
me,
lost a
it
lot of
was more
time.
like a CNC ripoff or whatever. But I still liked it. I bought that too. I had both CNC and Warcraft.
Yeah, you had, what was it, like orcs versus humans, and then they had several other versions of it. And then World of Warcraft, that's maybe the biggest video game ever. Talk about your crowd, your shared experience. That's like the MMORG that blew them up, that made everybody want to do it. And I played it for probably a couple years.
It's gotten to the point where they'll even like make movies out of video games now. Like Doom had a movie, Warcraft had a movie made about it. I was trying to remember when you brought up Tron. So was Tron a movie first, or was
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So
The
it was a
video game was made concurrently in the development of the movie, which is why there's a part of the video game that doesn't really play in the movie. It didn't make the final cut of the movie, but they made the video game.
Yeah, that's why the first Tron was actually a good movie, because
Yeah.
it was an actual movie, as opposed to
right
the second Tron, which just
a
sucked.
promotional item.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was the best video game movie. I guess it might have been Tron then.
Yeah, but that's not a video game movie.
It was the movie first, and then the video game.
And then the video game.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what's the best movie based on a video game?
I don't think there is one.
There's no good
Oh,
one.
the first Mortal Kombat.
All
That
right,
was a
I have to
fantastic
watch. I
movie.
have to watch that.
I know they have a new one out now, but the first
It was
one from like
horrible. It was god-awful.
97 or 98, that was a great movie.
That was the recent one was miserable. It was god awful.
Yeah, because I can't think of any.
Remember the Super Mario Brothers TV show?
How about the movie?
There was a movie.
Was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a game before it was a movie?
It was a comic
Yes.
book.
Well, yeah. No, that started as a comic book.
But what about, okay, so what about the games that, and I'm not really familiar with these, but the I don't know what to call them. I'll call them like kinetic games, like the Wii, where you're like physically doing stuff. Those always kind of reminded me of like pinball. I mean, like if you were a pinball player, like people don't know what like a hip check is now. Like like you like would like bump the game or whatever. Like no, but where you can like physically interact, like Dance Revolution, or again any of the Wii games where you have that like physical part to it. Those always intrigued me. I thought those were. I thought
when I finally decided to shell out the money for Guitar Hero, I thought that was
yes,
yeah,
that was a good game.
That was.
I miss my guitar.
And then they had one called Rock Band where you could get like drums and you could sing.
Yeah, man. I had my own axe with my stickers on it, and like, and then like my friend who's a guitar player, he's like, "You realize that you are not a good guitar player if you're good at Guitar Hero." It's like, yeah, I know, but I mean, I can dream, It's like,
well, I've got the Kinect.
VR games. Anybody played VR games?
I haven't.
At like places like Sky Zone, they have the VR games there where you can play them.
I have when I got my last phone, I got this VR kit with it, and it's actually it's a little disarming. I'm not ready for VR games yet.
Yeah, the phone stuff. I mean, it's
not bad
in there. I mean, but there are these. Man, I cannot think of the name of it, but you can get
Oculus
these goggles, huh?
Oculus Rift.
Yeah. That stuff looks pretty good, and I think I'm like a year or two off, and I'll the next gen I'll go on and get.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll have something that I can just plug into my iPad or something. That'd be cool.
Just tape the iPad to your head.
There's a place in Tyson's Corner where you go like as a group. I guess they've been closed, I guess because of the pandemic, but you go as a group and you can play like a Star Wars VR game together.
Yeah.
Where you're like a team and you're on a mission and you're like shooting and everything.
Apparently there's like this lightsaber dueling game for Star Wars where you put on
Oculus. Yeah.
No, it's just this. It's just the lightsabers, and you wear a helmet that looks similar to the one that Luke wore when he was covering his eyes in Star Wars. And yeah, it's just for the lightsabers.
Well, I'm waiting for the holodeck, man. So
yeah. Throw me right into it. Yeah. No need to go to Florida anymore. You just
right, exactly.
That was just for lazy writers, man. That's like the whole reason they put the holodeck in next gen, man. It was just like, hey, we got fuck it, we'll put a holodeck in. We can write stuff about dinosaurs and the Old West, like whenever we want to.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if they did.
Oh, it's almost as like when they have those like the worst of any series when they do it is those dream type episodes. I hate those. Hate them with a passion. Don't do it. Hate them. Hate them all.
It's a jump the shark. It's kind of a jump the shark kind of moment.
It is.
I'm trying, and there's always, every show that's got something like a holodeck that we can change reality kind of aspect. They always have a point where something's going wrong with it. Now it's deadly.
It's out of control.
Right. They turned it up to 10.
Yeah.
We turned it up to 11.
Right. Like the danger room. The danger room.
Yeah, like X-Men. Yeah, there was another game I was just thinking about. God, one of my biggest duds recently was the Avengers game. I was expecting so much out of it, and it's not bad, but it's really just controlling a character from the movie. It's not, there's nothing original, nothing new.
I think it's hard to make a really good like superhero game. The only ones that I like are the Spider-Man man games because it's fun to do the whole web slinging thing. And
Well,
then
Batman art, some of the Batman
oh
art,
yeah, the Batman stuff is good.
those
Yeah,
are really
yeah.
good.
Love the
Anytime-
Batman stuff. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, like you can only have so many good characters on a game. You're gonna be like, why'd they put this? Like I did have, it's a Mortal Kombat kind of game. It's called, it's DC. It's all DC heroes. Gods Among
Oh,
Us. Is it Gods Among Us? That's the
yeah,
con.
yeah. I think that's what it is because they have. Oh, have you watched
Oh,
on YouTube? They have these.
he gets so excited. He's adorable.
It's cool.
They have these like I guess they've like kind of put all of the segues together for the gods among us, so you can watch. It's like an hour long or something, but it's pretty interesting. So they fight and then they'll have the segue of what
Yeah.
whatever, but it's like kind of like watching a bad movie, but cool fight scenes.
Yeah, and
you know
it's kind of cool how they do it because it's seamless. Like as they do the cutscenes, they'll just walk into the gameplay mode. Like it's hard to explain, but it like I said, it's seamless. They just
but
all of a
here's,
sudden you're in the game again.
here's one thing. Has there been an Assassin's Creed movie?
I think so. Yeah.
Because I would imagine that would be probably a good movie.
I
Good
think there
movie.
was a movie.
Let's look. I know there was a Prince of Persia movie, and that was hot shit.
Was that Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah, that
Oh,
was Jake.
hold it. What's the one with Angelina Jolie? Wasn't that one of those?
Tomb Raider.
Raider.
That wasn't very good.
No, Tomb Raider was
Those
good.
made lots of money.
That's a good one. That's a good
Yeah.
pull.
I'm not on board. I like the game more than the movie.
I mean, is there a better video game made into a movie?
We're still thinking
I think
about
we're
it.
at Tomb
think
Raider
so.
might be the champion.
I mean, I guess, yeah.
So
How about,
I would say that like what's the video game with the little girl? She's with her dad and it's the zombies and stuff.
Walking no.
It's like Among Us or
Among Us. Well, that's
no,
not
no.
bad.
It's something us. It's something us, and it came with the PlayStation, like
Oh,
when the PlayStation 4 first came out. But it's a little girl and her dad, and she's at her house, and all this stuff happens, and things are blowing up or things are on fire, and there's zombies or whatever. And it's really good acting in the game. So I think that could be probably a really good movie.
So there was an Assassin's Creed movie, and it was in 2016, and I don't know anybody that was in it.
Yeah.
The last video game I played that I was really impressed with was on my
What was it
my
about?
daughter's I guess it's a Kindle, like a little Amazon Fire, for
Mhm.
kids. And it's this game called Monument Valley.
Yeah,
And-
that's huge. Yeah.
It was such a fun, cool game, man. Like you can just totally lose yourself in it. It's a lot of fun.
What's in that one?
So it's basically like geometry puzzles that you need to solve to like advance your little character. So
Right.
there's no it just takes the time it takes for you to figure it out. So the pace is whatever pace you want to do. And it has like a little story as you progress. And I mean, to play the whole thing takes hours. It's divided into little segments. But my daughter plays it. I can play it. Like you can enjoy it, like kids and adults. It's really fun. It's a cool little game.
Speaking of geometry, my son plays a game called Geometry Dash. He's so good at it, and the skill, I guess, that the kids nowadays have, it's beyond what we used to have because he can play this game and go through these levels and go just and I tried to play it and I can't get like 5 seconds without crashing into something. But that game is it's
Geometry Dash.
Geometry Dash. It should be you can probably get it on your phone, but try to play it. And I dare you to try and have any sort of success at it if you're above the age of 12.
You
It's
know
not a
what?
zombie movie. It's not a zombie game. It's The Last of Us. The Last of Us.
Okay.
And it's like I can't remember what
Like an
I
apocalypse
think
type
there was
thing.
some kind of infection or something, and it makes people go crazy or it makes them change or something. But the acting in it is really good. So I think that could be a good movie. That could be because it's already pretty much a movie. When you're playing it, it's like you're just acting in a movie. You
It
know?
already feels like that.
Yeah.
So I found one that we overlooked. Resident Evil.
Oh yeah.
Those were some of those were pretty good movies. I would actually put.
What's this about the big woman? The in the latest one, isn't there some like Resident Evil type game that has some woman that's really big and people have some kind of I don't know, attraction to this very tall woman.
Like 50-foot woman, like
Attack
attacking
of the
No, I think she's like 15 feet tall or something like that. But people, you know, I've seen things like, oh, I wish she could, you know, whatever. And and like she could kill me doing that, you know, and I'd be happy or whatever. But I've seen that. And it was one of those Resident Evil type games or whatever that it is. Let's
I
see.
like Resident Evil. I mean, you can't go wrong with. Is it Mila Jovovich
Yeah.
from The Fifth Element?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's actually probably one of the better action stars. That's a woman. Better than Angel. I just didn't like Tomb Raider all that much. I didn't think it was very good. I know I'm poo-pooing something you guys liked. I think Resident Evil was much more my oh my god, I just noticed the gold bar on the Pitfall screen. I forgot about those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, didn't you have to? You could go underneath. You could swing. You could, and if you couldn't catch the vine, you could jump on the alligators' heads. Oh, Mike, don't
Yeah.
go away.
No, I'm just showing you the screen.
Oh, there's a scorpion too.
And the
You guys-
snake.
Yeah. Do you remember any of the fighting games? Fight Night, like the boxing games.
Oh man,
Oh,
the last
Mike
one on the
Tyson's
PS3
Punch Out.
was awesome.
Punch Out.
And I'm like, why
Uppercut.
don't they still make them?
Left hook. Uppercut.
No, but wow,
Last
you're
Go,
you're behind a little though, Mike.
Gold Bowl.
The ones that Darcy and I are talking about are like
It's amazing, dude.
Yeah.
It's like you feel like you're a boxer, and
Yeah,
they have the actual boxers, and it has their traits or whatever. It's so like
you could have Mike Tyson fight Muhammad Ali or
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy. You know,
What
you could be
system?
Arturo.
Is it PC?
on everything. I think
Oh.
it's on everything.
What's it
Yeah.
called?
Fight Night, was it Fight Night?
I think it was fight. I think it was Fight Night.
And then they had King of Fighters, I think.
But I was so disappointed with the PS4 and how they didn't make anything. I was like, this sucks. Because I would spend hours getting that, you know, those movements down and the block, you know.
And yeah,
You know,
as
and
you're
you
going
could choose
along,
like the type of blocks that your boxer used, whether it was like a clam, you know.
you
There were
could
all these different types of blocking that you could set your boxer up for.
and you could build your own boxer and work your way up to like Ali or whoever.
Yeah, you can have a whole campaign. Yeah.
As you go through, you start to have like cuts on your eyes, and you could upgrade your guy, not like the Mike Tysons. They were just, you know, pre-made, but you could get them different shorts and would give them extra strength or extras. not like bizarre superhero level punching through walls, but just the hits landed better. But it was.
Upgrade your strength with some new shorts. Okay.
Well, no, I was just throwing out a random thing, probably gloves, you know, whatever. But But yeah, it was a fun game. And yeah, like I said, you'd get scars after a while, and if you didn't make it to like the top fighter by a certain time, they'd retire you because you started to get like punch drunk.
Too old.
Yeah, too old to fight. Yeah, it was a good game.
Hang up your gloves.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I like that one a lot. And my father-in-law, he was a Golden Gloves boxer back in the day, and he would even watch it and be like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." Well,
I don't remember any Rocky video games. Why was there never a Rocky?
Maybe they didn't license it, I guess.
How could they
Yeah.
not do that?
I don't know.
Seems like a missed opportunity.
Stallone probably wanted his cut. But it's funny you mention that, because on this Call of Duty game right now, they got 80s action stars. So there's like Die Hard Bruce Willis and Rambo. And they've like totally like, how do I put it? They've just made them a part of the game for like a month, and then they'll be gone, and then they'll put something else in, maybe Star Wars characters or something. It's kind of cool.
For which game?
Call of Duty.
Oh,
Yeah.
but you can play them in the game?
Yeah. And it's like Bruce Willis running around with his wife beater on.
Yeah.
And
McClane.
whenever he goes to get his gun, he pulls it from behind. And the Rambo, he's got a bow and arrow with dynamite on the end, and he's doing the M60. Or is it M60? No, it's a.
Yeah, that was the big machine gun, the 50 cal.
Yeah, was it M60? Yeah, it was an M60. But yeah, it's a fun game. I'm probably gonna play it as soon as they get off. So.
So how about like other games that are in arcades, like air hockey?
Oh yeah. Well,
I'd love to have one of those at home. What I'd really like to have in my home, though, is a foosball table. Like an old. Do you remember tornado tables?
Mm-hmm.
That was the
Foosball?
epitome. What? They're called Tornado. And they were the best table for me, at least. They were the one I liked to play on the most. I think there was another one called.
Oh, dude, remember when we used to play foosball all the time?
Oh yeah.
We'd go out to Strange Ways.
Dude, it was a great game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and remember there was one guy there that had one hand,
Phil.
really good.
Yeah, we called him One Arm Phil because he had one arm.
Man,
He had one arm.
That dude was good, man.
He was really good. Yeah. Yeah, he was a nice guy too.
Yeah.
So how would he go back and forth between his two lines?
Yeah, he had like a kind of like a stub or whatever. So he kind of used that for little
The
movements
roll.
or whatever.
To
But
roll.
man, when he set up for, going for a goal, oh man, he was always on. He was always on, man.
Yeah.
He would set it up and he was always moving back and forth. He was doing a lot more work than you were. He
Yeah.
was doing twice.
Yeah.
And he was showing it. And he was showing it. It was
But that was like those good foosball guys. Like they would like get the ball set up and then they take their hands off and they go like, and they'd be like, whack, and like bang in the goal. Like there's no way you could stop it,
That's where I was working towards. I could do all those special shots.
I don't know. I remember being like drunk at like parties, like sitting on the floor with my hands up on the thing, like still controlling the thing, like not being able to see the table. I remember that.
That's so random.
I'm saying foosball, dude. Everyone
last
wants a
week,
foosball.
right?
If you want a foosball table,
Last night.
there's a million foosball tables. You could probably buy them you can probably get them for free. Like because everyone who is like late 20s buys their first house, early 30s, they're like, I'm getting a foosball table,
right.
and they play it, and then they have a kid, and then they never play it again. And then you can buy it from those guys.
There was something so satisfying about smacking it in and it hitting that metal, that pink.
And you can't spin the guys, right?
Oh no, that's for noobs.
That's noobs.
Losers. And when somebody did do that, it infuriated you. It was always the girls. The girls would, the guys would want to impress their girlfriends, let them play, and then they just sit back there and spin them. And it's like, I'm gonna break.
There's
up.
nothing like, to me, when I see a foosball table, like I'm in a lot of people's houses because I do remodeling, and like I see.
I thought you were a serial killer.
Well, that's at night, but I see like a foosball. There's nothing sadder than a foosball table that's in pristine condition, because it's like you bought it and it never fulfilled the dream. Like a foosball table needs to be like fucked up, like cigarette burns in it, like the guy's head's missing, and there's like the field's all fucked up and everything.
One of the bars is bent way out of shape. One of the
It
bars
smells
Yeah,
like
the
a
handle's
brewery or
missing.
something. Like that's a foosball table. Like not the ones that all look polished and nice. That's crap.
That's funny.
Oh no, Jupiter's Legacy has been canceled.
What is that?
It was some superhero thing on
They canceled it. It was
Netflix
so good.
that sucked.
You didn't like it? I liked
It
it.
was terrible.
Nah.
This is why I love
It was
this.
terrible. And
I think
Darcy, you got me into I listened to the whole Secret Wars thing. They've got it on what's the app for the
Audible.
library? No, not there's one for the library. Hulu. No,
Hulu.
Hoopla, I think is called. Where if you have a library card, you can like rent audiobooks and things
Oh, okay.
on your iPad. So I listened to that, and then I found another one. There's one called Thanos Titan Consume.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that next month.
Oh my God. I listened. It's like 11 hours long, but I went through it in like 4 days or something. That one's incredible.
Yeah,
that's
right
fun
now
for
I'm
11
listening
hours.
to Loki
Yes.
and
my life.
and Carnage.
So just a quick question for someone that hasn't heard these. Is it one person who's telling the story, or are there multiple people?
So in the
voicing
Secret
characters?
Wars one, they have a bunch of different
There's a
actors
cast
doing it.
for that
Okay.
one.
But most of those books, it's usually just one or two people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it
Thanos one.
like the old radio programs? I call
Sort
it
of.
program.
It's sort of like old time radio, sort of.
Not that cheap, not that.
But it's
Old-fashioned.
modern. You know, it's very modern. So
Wait,
Walking
get
down
on
the
your
steps. There's a knock at the door.
It's Zeus on his horse. What's that called? Gaffing? Is that gaffing? Is that what gaffing is?
Foley.
They're the ones that
Foley.
make all the stupid noises.
Foley artists. Yeah.
Hilarious. That's
Holy
so
Lord.
funny. Somebody said I can make sounds that sound like other things from different things.
Get the big piece of metal to make it sound like thunder.
Like,
oh yeah.
that's so funny. Well, how are we feeling, guys? Do we feel like this is
Oh,
go ahead.
we got to do a cicada check. So have
Oh.
you guys noticed that cicadas start at like 6:30, 6:45 in the morning? It's like if you wake up at like 6:15, there's no cicadas. And then at like 6:30, 6:45, you can hear them ramp up. Do you guys have those?
Yeah, I've never noticed that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm down in Florida, so I don't have to deal with
You don't
cicadas.
have cicadas.
All right. So
Have any of you had the random one?
So, but
on
at
you this point?
home, there are cicadas. There are tens of thousands of cicadas.
Yes.
There are tens of thousands of dead, rotting
Yes.
cicadas.
Yes.
It's so bad that I hired a handyman. He's coming out on Friday to clean the yard up because it's like a goopy
Cicada
dead
apocalypse.
mess that it wafts through the whole neighborhood apparently, but I'm not there. That's sort of like, you know, I'm working, you know, I'm glad I got this extra work that I have to do down here, but I'm also glad that I'm missing that.
They're cool, man.
So apparently it was so bad they clogged, like I have this
Storm.
area that I had dug out down at the bottom, like going down the stairs to my basement. I had this area dug out and cemented and everything, and then a bucket put in with a sump pump and everything, right? So when water comes down, it gets pumped up and out. Well, these things decided to congregate down there and die. And they, like, I ended up, and thank goodness I did it last year, because before I had 3 holes that were about this big each in my manhole or whatever.
Yeah.
So the water could rush in or whatever, and leaves and stuff would rush in, and I'd clean that stuff out every now and then. But these guys, I mean, there was a ton of them. But anyway, last year I decided to put in a screen. So I put in individual screens in each one
Yeah.
that I made from I don't know, this, screen door stuff or
Right.
whatever. And I'm glad I did that, because it would have been even worse. Because apparently rain came in right behind that and was starting to flow into the basement, which was bad. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not bad where I'm at. But I do get a random one. I'll be just like sitting there, and then all of a sudden I'll look down and one's on my leg, and they're creepy looking.
Yeah.
But they're so cool, man.
And apparently they taste like shrimp.
I haven't eaten one,
I
but
heard
they're
that
like
before.
horrible flyers,
Wow.
man. They bump into stuff and bounce
Yeah.
off, and
It's like they're
and
drunk.
they're drunk, and they just like half of them just die. Like, I mean, I see bodies like missing heads or missing bodies, and the birds are loving it. Like every robin in my neighborhood is like
Yes.
as big as my head. Like they're like freaking huge.
They look like the Godfather of robins.
Yeah, birds are loving it, man.
The bird feeders nothing's going out of the bird feeders. They're just eating all these things. They got plenty of food.
But I'm just thinking these cicadas, like I said on another podcast, they're like 17 years old, and they're like, "Hey, I'm finally coming up out." They got like something eats their head. I mean, that's it. I mean, life is hard, man. This earth, this planet we live on, it is fucked
Waited
up. Like
17 years
it
for
is
this.
hard, man. Life is hard. Life is hard. That's all I gotta say.
Poor cicadas. Yeah, no, I don't feel bad for them. In fact, I got a pellet gun, and I might have shot one.
Yeah. No, a friend of mine says he just sits. He's got an airsoft rifle. He said like a few days ago he just sat outside and like shot like 100 of them, like sitting on his back porch, just like plonk, plonk, like just
Okay.
shooting them like all day.
We're gonna have to remove this so we don't get attacked by PETA.
I don't think PETA care. Cicadas are fine, man. Cicadas are gonna be.
Yeah,
cicada
here, Rebecca, she's vegan for moral reasons, right? And a couple of days ago, she called me and she's like, how I'm always like, oh, don't kill the bugs and everything. She's like, oh, kill all these motherfuckers. But she's like, after you kill them, just take them away because they stink when they die.
They stink.
They
Yeah.
stink.
That's funny. They're not that bad here over in Annandale.
Yeah, well, in the areas that have been paved over, I mean, they've basically been snuffed out,
Well, see, I was thinking where you live is a lot of old construction, so I think that they're probably more prone to like dig in there. Whereas here, I'm right, at least where I'm at now, I'm close to the highway. Probably all that vibration, it's probably not.
What if there's like a giant Godzilla-sized cicada, and
There
it only
is.
comes out like once every 17,000 years?
Yeah. I'm
We
like,
haven't really seen it yet,
What if?
but it's going to come out.
I love it.
What if?
Well, the only
It's
problem
all
with is the
congregate together
structure
and form
of
one big
it's
mecca.
the structure of insects.
Cicada.
So it's the holes that are in its shell and all that. It would be pretty big. It wouldn't be able to support itself. It would, wouldn't work.
Way to kill it, Darcy. Thanks.
Hey, sorry.
I think they're great, man. I think they're cool.
I think they're calling their alien overlords is what they're doing. That hum is actually a signal.
But they are. I mean, we went camping up in like near Lancaster, Pennsylvania this weekend, and there were just like a few.
Yeah.
I thought they would be up there.
Lake, and there was like none at the lake, not a single one.
Yeah, they're definitely geographically like very focused.
Are they
Like
just
where
in
they are.
Virginia?
I guess there
or
might
they-
be certain types of trees that they like to eat off of or whatever.
Yeah, are they everywhere or
The
are they
Mid-Atlantic
Europe?
area is like, but I mean, in our neighborhood, we've got these. I think I said this before. We have these old growth oaks that I couldn't even get my arms halfway around.
How often
And
do
they
you hug
are
these trees?
covered with these little pupa shells. But all the new trees and new thing, like not a couple here or there. But like the old growth trees and like in the parks where the old growth trees, they're everywhere. Yeah.
So that was our cicada talk.
I just want to bring it up because it's only once every 17 years. So
And you can't poison them, because if you poison them, you will poison the birds.
Yeah.
So
Well, I told you my cat ate a couple and threw up like 18 times, and now he just doesn't have anything to do with them. He learned his lesson.
the puppy next door like spends all its time eating them. So when by the time I left, they had vacuumed up their yard. Really, they were out there vacuuming the yard, and they made a playpen area so that the dog can't go to another part of the yard, so it's so it won't eat the cicadas, or at least won't eat as many. It's,
I think we're screwing up Darwin's whole theory when we do stuff like that. You know,
What, messing with?
maybe the dog should die from eating cicadas because
Thing is, it's once in a lifetime for an animal, right? I mean, they don't know. It's not like they've seen them before.
How long is 17 years in dog years? I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah, that is a long time.
That's all I got.
I'm actually kind of just sitting here watching it flounder. Yeah, sure must be a lot of years.
Was 1 year is 7 dog years, I think.
No, it's actually different than that. No, I'm not doing this. I think we're done. We've gotten to dog years. But I think it's like I think it's like the first 3 years is 7 years, and after that it's like 4.5 or something.
Oh, it's a sliding scale.
Yeah, something like that. It's like insulin.
So have you guys ever heard the thing where like if you were a porn star, then your porn star name would be the name of your first pet as your first name, and then the street you grew up on as your second name, as your last name. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
But you mean those sort of like memes that just collect your private information on Facebook? And
yeah, like if you wanted to be
don't respond to those things.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, like, so what was the name of your first pet, and what was the street name that you grew up on? And is it like a porn star name if you put them together?
Oh
like,
yeah, mine
totally. Mine's Buffy Darlington. That's like totally a porn star name.
Mine would be like Mittens Beacon Tree.
Yeah.
Mine would have been Sugar Mars.
Yeah, there you go, man. It works. It's like nonstop. It's like perfect.
What was yours, Tom?
I'm not giving that information. On your security questions, they always.
Oh, okay. Okay. I don't. Whoa, now I'm foggy again. Yeah, I don't use my first cat's name
but people are just collecting that. They're just trying to hack into your.
Hey man, well listen, I welcome those viewers
if you're
to our podcast.
doing that at all, those are stupid. Things that are about you are terrible. Those are breaches waiting to happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, those are terrible. You should always have like, okay, so your password should be a minimum of 14 characters. And you can use words and stuff, but you need to break them up with symbols or whatever, and have them be nothing that has anything to do with you, you know. That stuff is terrible, because all that stuff you can find out eventually. It's someone that knows you, you know. It's too easy.
If it's somebody that knows me, they know that I don't have anything, so I'd be a waste of their time.
You'd be surprised at how valuable something you know, or someone you know something about. That's why as soon as someone gets in, as soon as someone is compromised, there's a lot of information you can get about friends of someone. You know, it's deep, the way it all moves. It's terrible, man. That whole.
Now he's making me feel uncomfortable.
So you should always protect your data. Don't be like really nonchalant about your passwords, because if you don't have any money, your friends might have some money, you know. So it's not you know, I don't have anything. Trust me, you have something that's valuable, you know.
To somebody.
Yeah.
Shit. Bitcoin. You got a Bitcoin on your computer. Yeah.
Because people do that. They capture as much information as possible, keep it all in a
Because they're just
database,
crunching it. They're just
take
brute
advantage
force.
of it.
It may not be
Yeah.
important now,
Look,
but later on.
okay, so over the last month, I've had 6 clients, separate businesses, where they have received emails like it's from someone that they work with, asking them to do something. I even got an email from the president of my company asking me to purchase some gifts, and he said he wanted to keep it on the low because he wanted to be a surprise. And at first I was like, I sent him back an email. I was like, oh yeah, sure, no problem, And as it got more detailed, I was like, hold it, let me just call him. Because even though we were talking, communicating, I didn't bring it up, and I wasn't thinking anything of it because it seemed normal.
Right.
Then
Right.
there were certain things that was like, hey, did you send me a couple of emails talking about, getting some gifts for everyone? He's like, no. And
Wow.
see, and I have control, authorization to do things. So
Wow. Wow.
yeah.
So what about, real quick, I mean, what about this whole like Colonial Pipeline, and now they're talking like this JBS, like the meat supplier?
Oh yeah, most of that stuff is probably from social engineering, tricking someone into clicking on something. Someone gets in, they get enough information, or they're able to get you to click on something thinking it's an application that's a benefit to you or something. And then they run encryption software on your profile, and it has like a time bomb date, and then it encrypts all your data, encrypts your saved data, and then you're just SOL unless they give you the key.
Yeah, it's called
Depending on
ransomware.
what type of stuff you do, it can be easy to just, okay, well, we can just blow that away and start everything all over, start reinstalling the servers, go back a couple of months or whatever. But some companies, the way they operate, that might just wipe you out. Imagine if you had, a couple of months of billing that was hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and it's all locked up. So you have no idea who owes you what. You're screwed.
Isn't it something that we're going to be experiencing, like whether we like it or not, for a while to come?
Yeah, because they're stupid people. They're very stupid people that aren't thinking. And I'm not saying like everyone has to be mindful. Don't click on anything that comes to you in email. Don't click on it. Don't
The
trust it.
Nigerian guy is not going to send me, the Nigerian prince is not really sending me the one.
Not real. But
Those
even
are the good ones. At least you can have a laugh. These
Yeah.
ones, you don't even know that you've been tricked, until, it comes up with we want $20 million.
and they can send out hundreds of thousands or millions of
Yeah.
these. They only need one or two to respond.
Right.
Right. And theirs is more malicious. Yeah, like the Nigerian prince thing, it's a money grab, and it's mostly aimed at older people that are gonna fall for something like that. Like probably the first time we've all gotten one where it's like, yeah, just send me your social security number and your bank account.
Yeah, I just need this little bit of information. That's it. Just to make sure you are who you say you are.
You want $1 million, but you need to pay me 500 so I can send you the 1 million.
To pay the transfer fees. And
Yeah.
I need your
Right.
checking account.
That's like, no, why don't you just take that out of the money that you owe me? And that's
It doesn't work that way. We can't do that.
Yeah, they caught like one of the big scammers that I watched. It was on like 48 Hours or something, or one of those.
Is that still on?
I don't remember. Oh no, not 48 Hours. That's the
Crossfire.
2020.
Like a 2020 or
Dateline.
60 Minutes kind of thing. They
Dateline.
caught.
I found one YouTuber. He is
Yeah.
he's into cybersecurity, and what he does is he hacks the hackers. So when they attempt to get him, he gets them, and he goes along with the whole thing while he's in their stuff, watching what they're doing. And I'll see if I can find some of those videos, and
There was
I'll
one
post them.
where he turned their laptop camera on and he was watching them, as they were like trying to scam him.
Wow.
Cool. You've seen it too, Tom?
Yeah,
I'd like to see that.
they're out there.
Yeah. So what do you say we call it a wrap, guys?
All right.
All right, but let's stay on for a second because I'm just gonna stop recording.
All right, boys.
Don't go anywhere.
Good night, everybody.
Don't go anywhere.